Before initialising my production, a lot of planning within the animatic and shot list took place to gain a solid structure for the basis of what my film would offer, in terms of the micro-technical elements involved, to adapt and apply a Lynchian stylisation alongside the key themes explored within my creative investigation. Key themes offered by Lynch throughout my focus films I had studied include desolation, depression and isolation. These themes, alongside others also studied, were applied within my film to create a sense of sympathy for the pure emotional, mental and physical suffering of my focal character, of which he goes through during the diegesis. It was important for me to address this stylisation and thematic approach to the narrative, as it supports my planning and research in the development processes. Originally, I had 3 snippets to which were going to be combined in addition to other edited footage to address different flashback types, i.e. the positive and negative memories. This can be seen in the footage here. However, I had then later decided that this would be going slightly off of course in terms of trying to be accurate and consistent to the themes I had originally chosen to explore. I had discarded this within the final production and 2 drafts, as I felt that to have a Lynchian approach, this was not necessarily the way to go. Lynch had done a profound job in creating these nightmarish settings and atmospheres within his films, primarily within Eraserhead and The Elephant Man. This was done through the haunting flashbacks presented through the protagonist's previous experiences. As seen within the 2 pieces of footage here, within The Elephant Man and Eraserhead, we as the audience can witness shots which offer pinpoint light and through zoom-ins and close-ups highlight the character's pure fear and distraught of terrible recollections. When initialising my film, as you can see in the following footage, I had run a rather gentle piano soundtrack labelled Your Psycho, along with the initial establishing shot to set the scene for the audience and begin to drive the narrative forward. This sound tool was used as a contrapuntal device against my desolated protagonist character, Christopher Wood, as he strains within the sadness of his cell. This establishes the scene within a juxtaposed manner, similarly to the initialisation of The Elephant Man, where the carnival music plays alongside Frederick Treves' investigation of what occurs behind closed doors of the freaks within the circus. Leading on from this, I had followed the images in my storyboard to construct my film by then leading on to the scenes of which Christopher Wood becomes disturbed by the psychiatrist of the asylum. I cut off the piano track at this point after he has walked towards the cell door, which I film within a high angle through a hole within the door. From this point, I'd used just the natural sounds within the footage to convey realism and offer pure disturbance through the scenes of distress. All the way throughout, I had William Cross act unpredictable to accurately reflect a psychologically deteriorated mind of which suffers from many different mental illnesses as stated within the early posts. Cutting within and out of the present footage is visions of which are occurring within Christopher's mind, offering him within a plain and compact room of which he acts completely uncontrollable, as voiceovers of him whispering various messages blistering his mind occur. This helped me progress with the narrative and keep the audience engaged at this point, as many questions why this is all happening to him. It furthermore gave you as the audience an insight, as you have become part of Christopher's corrupted psychology. Nightmarish flashbacks of Christopher's previous domestic abuse occur through an inclined bass sound, leading on to corrupted visions. Through this footage, I used a zoom into the heavily pregnant Jane Wood to unexpectedly disturb my audience. This can also be visualised within the nightmare scene of John Merrick within The Elephant Man, as seen within the following footage, using a zoom in to a nightmarish setting. This supports the backstory and development of the narrative, as it offers reasons to why Chris is within the Lord Liar's asylum in the first place. Here, voiceovers also run within the background, sourcing from Richard Wood, as fast-paced cutting shows him rapidly beating Chris. This fast-paced editing allowed the audience to be further engaged, as it meant that they could endure into the past horrors of the protagonist. After the domestic abuse flashback, I had accurately cut in time some footage to which Christopher Wood slaps his hands on the asylum walls and begins peeling paint layers from it. This works nicely again, as it's unexpected, and it keeps the audience on edge constantly throughout. To then progress the narrative even further and highlight the symptoms of delusional disorder, I had put together another nightmarish sequence of which Christopher Wood visions a non-existent perspective of his dead brother, Andrew Wood, in urge to save him from the asylum. This was a postmodern feature implementation of hyperrealism through Chris's non-existent experiences. He believes that whatever goes on within his mind is more real than reality itself. Within the first-person shots as seen within the nightmare sequence, the audience can visualise the true dark nature of my film, as it offers various areas of the interior of the asylum, whilst rather nerve-wracking sounds such as haunting moans and echoes reflecting the voices of Chris that he can hear within his mind occur. Again, the intercutting between a blank room within his mind occurs as I overlay the clips by lowering one's opacity within Final Cut Pro to symbolise how he has multiple personalities through the suffering of delusional disorder. He is purely unpredictable. Linking back to Andrew Wood's perspective, the sound design was incredibly intricate, as breathing are all which I created within a fully realistic. None of all of the sounds you can hear within, as you can see, I had overlaid the clips again throughout, mimicking the spray-painted insane person on the walls and the blended footage of Will Cross in Chris's perspective doing the same facial expression to create a artistic and daunting approach. I'd intentionally swiftly ended the footage after a voiceover of Christopher saying, "Don't go down there," to leave my audience on edge and believing that the focal character is just witnessing one of his multiple personalities. After this point, the camera cuts sharply and instantly to Chris as he suffers from a deafening high-pitched siren within his head, flickering back and forth between the visions of him trapped within a blank room and the reality. Finally, I offered a last nightmarish flashback of a first-person perspective from the psychiatrist's point of view, throwing Christopher Wood into the asylum to add the backstory and further highlight the true physical mistreatment this character has suffered from throughout his life. My film would then finalise with a cut back to the present of Christopher looking straight into the camera, breaking the fourth wall to convey how you as the audience have become part of his insanity through the experiencing all of the torturous events he has been involved in, lurking within the dark corners of his mind.